Hi, I'm Natalie Leroy, and I lead design and research practice here at Accenture London. I'm also the AI practice lead, and I'll admit, I absolutely love getting my hands on new AI products. I spend a lot of time putting them through their paces, testing the limits, and seeing what they can really do, and also where they break, from design to coding to writing. Over the past year, I've been running deep tests across 3 major models: OpenAI, my favorite pet, which I use constantly, Anthropic, which I've used a lot for my master's research and breaking down really complex ideas, and Gemini, which I've politely parked in my mailbox for right now, but I've been really impressed with the improvements that they've made over the past year. And on top of that, I've been extensively building with Lovable, an AI-driven site builder. In fact, I recently won a European innovation contest using Lovable's model. It's been a fantastic tool for rapid prototyping and expanding on a lot of my work. And so when I heard that Lovable was hosting an AI Showdown contest where we could pit different models against each other using Lovable's framework, I wanted to jump in. The idea is to take Lovable, which works using Claude, weaving together OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google models together to compare how each individual model performed when building websites from scratch. You got to play with the different models individually over the weekend to see how they behave with the same problem. So, what did I create? I went for something called a website recycler. Imagine that you've gotten an old website. Maybe you haven't touched it for years. Maybe it's been full of outdated pages, broken links. You know the drill. And normally you'd have to audit all that content manually and figure out what's worth keeping, rebuild that site structure, and then relaunch. But that can take weeks, months, or even years. And you might not get a better looking site. So what if instead you could pop your old website into an AI tool and have it audit all the content that's useful, sort it, and rank it, handling things like redirects and link checking, and finally rebuilding the entire site with minimal CRM features so that you can easily edit it and manage it going forward, which is what a lot of people need. That's what I set out to do using Lovable's framework. And you might be thinking, that sounds easy enough for an AI to do. All of those models and patterns and tools already exist online. But no. I spent all Friday night trying to build something and design something that would actually break and test these models. It's super deceiving because it's way more complex than it sounds. Auditing a website's content, scraping links, checking metadata, and prioritizing what it should say. It's kind of like asking AI to be a digital librarian and content strategist all at once. And then creating a whole new website inside of a website on the fly is also very hard. You're asking a model to act as a designer, a developer, and an information architect all in real time. Honestly, I wasn't quite sure how this would work. I knew it would break down at some point, especially across all these different AI models. I knew that there would be differences in how things were configured. So how did it go? Which model performed the best? And what did I learn about AI in this process? So with my GPT website, I was able to generate a very basic homepage. The key sections I prompted showed up, but it took 2 or 3 rounds to get there. A lot of the elements somewhat felt stunted, which with these strange card views, and also I had to push it in order to go on to the actual functionality of the website. When I get into the website, it links to a strange dashboard where I'm not able to see really much about the functionality that I had requested initially. Everything feels like it's defining things and telling us what it should do, but it doesn't actually give me the functionality that I'm looking for. And it quickly pushes us into an information architecture section, which I had to push it to make. Again, here with the definitions. I felt like the actual UI system of this was really hard. Initially, I had thought that I would work a lot with OpenAI, but actually I found that I was using about double the amount of prompts in order to get to the same place. I ended up leaving GPT of a Opined and starting to explore another one. With Google, we saw our old sites turn into our best site. You can see that Google's material is really apparent here, from the way that the content is laid out to its minimal look. However, it doesn't exactly feel like a website. I had to push it to go beyond this homepage. So let's put in our old website, see what it does. Right away, I do get a comprehensive content audit, and I'm able to see all sorts of things and details that I didn't get earlier. Look at the new site preview. I actually get a preview on the first try, and I can see how we look at this all together. When I look at the editor, I can see a very minimal editor that perhaps just looks at one page, but you don't see the pages listed, and you have to remember what page it is. Settings didn't actually go that far. It was difficult to work with Google because I did have to push it, and sometimes it would generate an error that wasn't immediately evident about how to fix it or what sort of information that Google needed in order to move forwards. With my Anthropic site, I got something that looked far more like a website right off the bat. You can see that there's navigation, we have easy to understand definitions and prompting, and there's a little bit more creative use of UI here. Right? We also see some key features as to how the site works. And when I put in a website, we're going to use gov.com. I can have it look through the site And we get a quick dashboard and an overview that shows me different aspects that we wanted to examine from my initial prompt about the website. I can also look at the content audit, look at anything that's technical, and then see recommendations. However, I have to start recycling. It goes through this process in a card view, and we can go through all the different steps with our handy little animation. Once the website is recycled, we get to these cards, which rendered kind of nicely, but also offer us some strange layouts here too. I can download the website or I can edit the content, which we wanted to edit it. We didn't actually want to download it. With Anthropic, I actually got to the part where I can make a website editor. You can see it as a live preview. We look at all the different elements and we can see how to quick build it. I can preview it or I can edit it and get to content, settings, a visual manager, content manager, analytics, see the site settings as well, and an easy to manage overview, which is really cool. I couldn't believe that it actually got that far. With Anthropic, it definitely took a little bit longer to load everything, but we actually were able to achieve some of these really difficult prompts that we got through, from just putting in a website to getting a full overview. So even though that this contest asked for just using one model, I thought it was important to actually see how the models were woven together. I used Lovable with the exact same prompt that everybody got. Right off the bat, I'm already seeing some of the elements, and I'm able to see how the different models are drawn from in order to create something for a Lovable page. We still have a minimal interface, but I can see all the different uses. Like we have a navigation like Google would build. We have definitions and the way that GPTs applied them. And then also have some of the same questions that were asked in our Anthropic. Let's put in our old site, analyze it, and I can see the process. Again, using some of the same interface elements that we saw with Google and with Anthropic. We see some of the different content, and we're able to get a little bit more functionality here and determine what we should keep in our site and what not to keep. I'm able to go onto our news structure and see all the redirects as well. So once we've approved our strategy, we can take a look at our site rebuild. That's when we got stuck with Lovable.
This was a very fascinating experience to see how Lovable uses Claude to weave together all the different elements of models in order to create the sites that are so fun to make with Lovable. But in the end, there can only be one winner. Drumroll, please. And it's Anthropic. Needed fewer prompts, gave you more functionality, and built a better product and user experience overall. Even though the load times were a little bit slower in the beginning. But with Anthropic, we were building a website recycler. While OpenAI gave me decent logic, it required double the prompting and didn't have as many expansive UI elements that I actually wanted, and the definitions are a little heavy-handed. And Google produced a nice look, but kind of like a vacant room. I really had to push it in order to get to something, and then it didn't really feel like a website or a product that I could work with. The Lovable gave us a wonderful site with all the very different elements combined, but in the end, we couldn't actually get to an editor, and we kind of froze on an error for a while. Anthropic really balanced out the structure, the content, and usability. Thanks so much for following along. If you enjoyed this, please like and share. I really appreciate it. Bye!